glorify the King. Why integrity? Because Christ died. He died that you and I may live. That's why integrity. Integrity is about ethics, about principles, sound moral judgments. My birth on the 2nd of June, under the 1948 British Nationality Act. My birth was an international birth. That should, and at the house of the family and the birth, should have been congratulated and recognized. But it was the House of Windsor that chose not to. However, we know why. I want to say to the Bahamian people these things. It is important that we remember, because it's 2013, it cannot negate the word integrity. It cannot negate the word ethics. It cannot negate the word principle or principles. It cannot negate the word respect. It cannot negate the word genuine respect, genuine love. My name is Amos Junior Miller, Israel. And the Supreme Court of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas and justices of the Supreme Court of the Bahamas have contravened my constitutional, democratic, hereditary rights in regards to human rights, hereditary rights. As a sovereign Bahamian, the day I born, the 2nd of June, for 16 years the Royal House of Windsor served the world as reigning sovereign over our country. It is absolutely unfortunate. Like my father, he left the Bahamas because the government of the day targeted the men, in such a way that he went to school and never thought it was prudent to return under those type of circumstances. Excuse me. And that's between the years 1970 and present. I want to say to the Bahamian people, but first I want to say something to the owners of all television and all radio stations in our country. You are now influential by way of having your finger on a trigger, yet there is someone over y'all with a stick. There is no one over Amos J. Miller, Israel, like that. Now, the Lord Most High is sovereign. The political leaders, I want you all to know, it does not matter for me whether or not the average Bahamian understand. The average Bahamian, but primarily on Facebook, Twitter, Google, Instagram, LinkedIn, those kind of places, where the message of truth can reach a larger audience than the average television or radio station in the Bahamas would reach. However, I pay my respect because those people gave me an opportunity to speak on their station when I knew nothing about what I'm talking about. As far as I'm concerned, everyone knew about me in this fashion except me and my family, my house. Yet my house could not understand why we had it so hard. Now, my mother brother is Alfred Virginius Cornelius Gray, Minister of Agriculture and Fisheries in this country. And yet, no one knows if I had breakfast this morning. The power in this home is still off. It was first turned off by the England government. But by the time his throne got upset because I would not take sides and I would stand up for the Bahamian people in regards to his policies, he too was now offended. Mr. Perry Glasson Christie came and changed absolutely nothing, other than made a legacy for himself in regards to the $1 billion that were borrowed in 1 year. Too many real Bahamians with real indigenous Bahamian names with those Bahamian names as of 1948. That kind of lineage Bahamian, where the majority of their grandparents and parents would have born on those family of islands. In my case, it's Auckland. Okay? Now, I pay my respects to the word citizens because I have invaded in some type of way, and I apologize in my humble opinion, in a humble way, for any intrusion. However, it was and it is necessary for the world government to understand that what goes around comes around. I am an African Bahamian, Hebrew, Israelite, survivor of the Atlantic slave order / trade, that I am a part of both the order and the trade. Now, I pay respects to the honorable people of our country. Again, I cannot be a politician. I cannot be a prime minister on your behalf. That is a decision the Bahamian people have to make in regards to who lead them. I was just born 3 years before our country went independent, so that when our country turned 40 years of age, in regards to the struggle in respect to the black human race, I would be able to balance the truth with respect. So, if you deny the average black male in the Bahamas vital access to their resources in a time when their country is being invaded by foreign negative, national security negatively impacted, illegal immigrants into our country on every level, starting from the top. Now, the Junior Minister for National Security, the Honorable Keith Bell, is offended because I brought to his attention a matter that is and was, not is, and what that was before the courts. Ruling have been made by Justice Milton Evans. Ruling have been made before his ruling in respect to case number 00995, heard before /2011, heard before September 13, heard before Chief Justice Samuel Barnett, who was given that privilege to serve the Bahamian people by the former Minister for Finance and former member for North Harbour Code, Hubert Alexander Ingram. Okay? I don't know who gave Justice Milton Evans his title. All I know, if the shoe was on the other foot, okay, and it was them who born on the 2nd of June, 1970, 3 years before our country turned independence. And you know, majority ruled and the times was changing. But however, the time was not officially changed in regards to persons born to Bahamian fathers in the British colony of the Bahamas between 1948 in respect to the British Nationality Act 1948, and what it meant, because it still stands, it's a document still stands, it shows the Universal Declaration of Human Rights document is still standing. It is relevant to my birth because by 1970, as a United Kingdom citizen by way of birth in the Bahamas, then I were entitled to certain rights and privilege under that law. So even though the Crown was given through their Parliament the right for other countries, colonies and territories, dominions, to seek their own universal Declaration of Human Rights and in respect to nationality and in respect to citizenship, nationality and citizenship. Any attempt for the Bahamas to go independent at that time was fine and proper. In 1965, it does not negate the fact that my grandparents and that generation lived and what they stood for. Now, it is historical in nature. In these days and time, give and take, the science and technology will exist today. Maybe not then, but maybe not back in those days, the science, even if the science existed and the technology, it was not affordable for this generation. It is now time for me to declare to the world who I am as that child that was born. I was anointed by birth to be king. You see, it is by choice, by ethical choice, ethical principle. It is because of a desire to be honest, to see a nation, to see a generation, to see a race, a black race once again become more ethical, morally speaking. Let's obliterate secularism to the extent where we interfere with other persons' right to live. And then we use the natural resources of that individual country to destroy them. Listen, if the government policy of the Bahamas in the last, from 1992 to present, 2013, this is now September, have been egregious to the extent that it has contravened the sovereign right of individual in respect to Chapter 3 of the Bahamian Constitution, primarily Article 15, and seconded by Article 28 and what it speaks to, then I submit that policies and agreements entered into by the Bahamian government with any country, with anyone, any group, with any group or group of countries that have taken away the sovereignty of a nation from the average individual so that that organization or treaty can survive or exist, then that is discrimination. It is, a violation of everything that Chapter 1 of the Bahamian Constitution stands for. Thus, it nullifies what the preamble of the Bahamian Constitution represents, which is important to my birth, that is connected to the signing of the Universal Declaration of 1948 and the British Nationality Act of 1948. Bahamas, you are now hearing the truth. There is no political leader, how about that? No black pastor on the planet. And we have 7 continents. Okay? 7 continents. Okay? And there is not one black pastor who can deny that God, Yahweh, in the spirit of his Christ, the Yeshua, was and is and will always be, okay, King of Kings and Lord of Lords. He was hanged from a tree. I will not crucify any longer the black race in respect to knowledge. We were hanged on a tree because we were hated from the beginning because we represent the truth. Now, if any political leader on the 7 continents wish to challenge that, then they have their fingers on the triggers in regards to their national station, including the British government, including the United States government, and Mr. President, and Mr. Prime Minister of Great Britain, especially the King of Spain. Now, I submit on this Sunday, okay, that I worship His Majesty, the Yeshua, his father, Yahweh. My history dates back all the way back to Amen. You know, and God is sovereign. The first begotten of the Father, full of grace and truth, was the Yeshua, who came in the lineage of Amen, great men like Imhotep. The standard and the precedents have been set and made. There is no case for me to make any further. My bank account, hold for him please, my private bank account at the Bank of the Bahamas International, branch 195, is a private account in the name of Amos J. Miller, 551-0048-927. Again, at the Bank of the Bahamas International, branch 195 in Nassau, Bahamas, his private account in the name of Amos J. Miller, account number 551-0048-927. I don't need to know how the money got there. What it will show is that everyone concerned is now showing the respect that it was and is and should have been paid and is due retroactive from 1970, the 2nd of June. The very same day, the Royal House of Windsor were, and all governments, and I suspect the Bahamas government, honored, and the Bahamas government at the time was who? Okay? Now the Bahamas had one of the oldest parliament in the world's history. It is a privilege to speak to the honorable men and women who sit in our parliament on behalf of our people. Every Bahamian, whether they vote or do not vote, was born free and equal in rights and in dignity. And they deserve the free and equal opportunity for their representative to be free to advocate on their behalf in their parliament, or else they are again enslaved. This is what adherence to moral and ethical principles is all about. Soundness of moral character. This is what honesty personifies. Honesty on the 7 continents will always be the best policy. The Universal Declaration of Human Rights it still stands today. There is no political leader, as I pay respects to the Security Council, the United Nations Security Council, and I also pay respects to the Sovereign Grand Commander of the Supreme Council. My name is Amos J. Miller Israel, and I claim all of my constitutional, democratic, hereditary, human rights in respect to individuality and sovereignty in this country. Thus, it demonstrates soundness of my moral compass. Freedom of expression was and is and will always be one of the most sacred articles you will find in the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, and that you will even find in the human rights document of the UK, including in the British Nationality Act 1948. So the state of the Bahamas and this kingdom, in my humble opinion, is in a state of emergency. We are at our edge facing political obliteration because we have political representatives of our constituencies representing our country that does not have our best interest and the best interest for all sovereign citizens of this country at heart. Now, any leader that holds constitutional seat in our country, according to our constitution, I find it absolutely egregious if the legislators fail to act responsible, give and take what the cards they hold and the cards that were dealt to the house of Willis Miller, the original root of this conversation. Now, the integrity of this kingdom in respect to the house of Willis Miller and Amos J. Miller Israel and my father, who's still alive, and my mother, as I pay respects to them. They are responsible for me being here. Part 1. Point 1. Take 2. They never chose the 2nd of June for me to come into this world. It was God, the Almighty and the Omnipotent, omnipresent, Alpha and Omega, the beginning and the end. He who was and is to come. In the spirit of knowledge. I did not reject the name of God. I found his name because his love and his kindness in regards to his grace and his mercy was and is and will always be my interest, and should, in my humble opinion, be the interest of the average sovereign individual on the 7 continents. On these grounds, I ask the Bahamian people to study who we are as a people, and let us together free ourselves from our political enslavement and reenactment of political obliteration in regards to their treasonous plans to continue to defraud a nation out of their richness in a time when science and technology is number 1. The Bahamas, when it comes to our natural resources, is number 1. So it should be absolutely egregious for the average political leader in our country to know, standing in our parliament, that the majority of the Bahamian people's natural resources is in the hands of some foreign company out of whatever one of the 7 continents. And now that my finger is on the trigger of DYNAMOS and the whirlwind of the birth of the child have now started, I suggest to all world leaders, including the Bahamas government, to take into deep consideration at the 69th General Assembly meeting, and take into even greater consideration and deliberation in regards to the United Nations Security Council and their deliberations in respect to the agenda of the 69th meeting of the United Nations General Assembly meeting that would be held in New York, live last. My name is Amos J. Miller Israel, and I am the Hebrew Israelite, born and chosen date by birth, chosen by God himself. There is no one on the planet can challenge his truth, because it is the truth. So may the spirit of my grandfather and their generation live forever, and the natural resources of our country now be returned to the hands of the true individual Hebrew Israelite Bahamian and those that will follow this truth. So may Yahweh, and it's in the spirit of his son Yeshua, who is your Alpha, your Omega, and this goes now whether you're black or white, because this conversation, while I demand reparation for the black race, I don't care what y'all have and what y'all doing around the 7 continents. The question for the average Bahamian male on our streets is what was done for us in the last 40 years. Okay? That will last. The selling off of our natural resources that our grandparents' generation worked hard for, the 1948 generation, my grandfather's generation was born in the early 1900s, now their majority of their natural resources in the hands of some foreigner, it makes me absolutely irate. And I will cause any political leader responsible for that to be, 1, investigated for corruption and for treasonous act towards a nation and its national sovereignty and sovereign wealth that should and could and will, by the help of the Almighty God and the courage of the real Bahamian. Now, it's no reason a nation who have at least 3 Rhodes Scholars should not now throw their support behind the birth. God ordained this day by making sure I was born a British citizen from the United Kingdom. You see? Yes, my birth. I was born a United Kingdom citizen. And it wasn't until 1973, July 10th, that it came into effect that I then became what then would be called the first birth in regards to Bahamian independence. The birth of Bahamian independence and sovereignty does not negate the fact that this is true, all right, or this is false. The bottom line is, this is true, and the Bahamas government is now responsible for how it is now handled in respect to DYNAMOS. It was my father who said in his word that his day is a day of darkness, complete darkness. So I say to the powers that be responsible for electricity on the planet, those are General Electric responsible for the patent for the arc light bulb and the DYNAMOS machine. You have now been introduced to the original DYNAMOS child by birth, hereditary birth, that no political leader before or after can ever challenge. May the God I serve, Yahweh, in the spirit of his son, Yeshua, be with us all now, so we can all live together as family. I pay respects then to the House of Windsor in this regard. Her Majesty, Queen Elizabeth Alexandra Mary II. It is a lot more I can say. It is a lot more I perhaps will say. Today, I pay respects, because I now know that it was trickery by corrupt political leaders who tried to defraud me out of this historical hereditary education of myself for, to bring harm to me and to my life and to my family. I now know whether your house was involved or not, man, I pay you respect, and may you live forever. Now knowing that this is my character, this is my integrity, and this is the integrity that I intend to live from this day forward. This is the integrity I intend to teach my son Joshua, Jared, Miller, Israel, that one day he will now know his name is Joshua Jared Miller Israel, and he is a royal child. He's a royal child. Okay, he even born in 2000, the year of the millennium. He is a millennium birth. In 2040, he too will make great and awesome history in time, thus solidifying the name Amos J. Miller Israel, the royal heir and royal seed for life. May God bless the kingdom of DYNAMOS. Amen.